bless us with a blessed day of worshiping Him. And we turn our attention to the Quran, where Allah talks about He is Al Hadi. He is the creator. We talked last week and the week before, because it was very important for us to talk about the growth process. We dealt with the verse where Allah talks about how He placed us in the earth for the very purpose of growing. See? Not to get stuck, but to grow. Not just to grow physically, but to grow mentally, morally, but to grow also spiritually. To realize that the greatest growth is the growth we have as we build this relationship with Him. That's why Ramadan is so important. The fast in that month was really designed for us to grow as spiritual beings. And then Hajj is another testament of that spiritual growth and the spiritual maturity. We begin to realize, where do we place the priorities? Look at the life of Allah. He's Al Hadi. He is the creator. He gives us the life. And the whole month of fasting was designed to work to increase the consciousness of strengthening that relationship with Him, so we can strengthen the relationship with ourselves and begin to preserve the life that He gave us, because the life is sacred. See, Ramadan really teaches us how valuable the life is, and the value of that life is seen as we bond with Allah, then we become closer to ourselves. And we highlighted the very fact that the first law of nature is, as you know, self-preservation. That everything in creation, other than the human being, works to preserve itself. See, other creatures run from harm. You can walk up on an animal, you walk up on a cat or dog, they run from you, or that dog will attack you for survival. If the animal feels threatened, they move away. But the human being, who Allah said is the most evolved on the earth, with his intelligence, allows an intelligence to work against him. Therefore, he moves in such a way that he works to destroy the very life that Allah has given to him. Not that he owned it, but as a trust. So the verse Allah says, وَاللَّهُ أَنْبَتَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ نَبَاتًا, and He placed you in the earth to grow. And the highest level of that growth as a human being is a spiritual being. We know we grow economically, we grow financially, we grow intellectually, but the highest expression of that life is a spiritual being who realizes worth is not measured by what he has. That's why when those who make this journey, they will be making the journey for Hajj real soon, they realize that they come into this mindset that these clothes are insignificant in terms of the measurement of my worth. That's why they put on Iklan. And all of those who made Hajj can give testament to the fact that that means nothing. That you realize He is a human being. Allah says He's Al Hadi. He created the human being. And this human being has a role in the creation. And that human being has to learn how do you relate to other human beings. See, that's the problem in the world. The problem is not being able to relate with other human beings. That's why we talked about, we don't believe in no political salvation. See, we already see what happens in the White House. We don't believe in political salvation. Our salvation comes through our ultimate connection with Allah. And we've seen the classism. And all of this is demonstrated in Hajj, that the classism is not a major issue. It's a problem for man when he's classified based on status, based on resources, based on things, and not based on being a human being. That's the classification. I am a human being. He says, khalaqal insan, that He created the human being. And then He says, yes, He raised some above others, but for the purpose of service. And then He raised some above others for the purpose of giving you a test to see how you would deal with the status. Because some people have power over others, and then that power becomes abusive. So he says, Khalaqal Insan, that he created the human being. So Hajj is going to show us the greatest lesson of what does it mean to be a human being. That the human worth is not based on what you have or what you don't have. That human worth is based on your connection with Allah. So he says, he is Al-Khaliq. And in Surah Al-Rahman, he says, Ar-Rahman, first letting us know that he is the merciful benefactor. He says that through his mercy, he gives us all the benefits we need to function in his creation. He makes it known that he's Ar-Rahman. And then he says, after letting us know he's the merciful benefactor, he says, Alam al-Quran. That he taught the Quran. That man needs this revealed scripture that's going to allow him to ascend and graduate as an evolved human being. Not just a human being, but he's an evolved human being who's growing and understand his position in Allah's creation. So he says, Ar-Rahman, Alam al-Quran. Then he says, Khalaqal Insan. Here's the mercy. He said, I taught you the Quran, I created the human being, the sensitive creature. The creature who realized he has to bond and connect with other human beings to realize his real worth in the world, because the whole process of education is to stimulate and bring out what Allah put inside you. Then he says, Al-Lamahul Bayan, that he taught that human being how to clearly express himself so he can interact and engage with another human being. That's mercy. So he says, Khalaqal Insan. He created the human being. I was watching the news, and I cited about 5, 6, 7 different cases of people just getting shot all day long, because they have no value for the human being. Over there in New York, little teenager girl just gets shot up. 51-year-old man out there playing, I think, backgammon, shot all up. Just no regard for this great creature Allah put on earth. He says, Khalaqal Insan, he created the human being. And if he created that human being, then that human being is valuable. And that's the lesson the world has to get, that this human being that Allah placed on earth as his manager is valuable. And his value is not based on what he had. That's why I said when he put the Ikram on, he said, I'm releasing the culture, God, that give you my distinction. I'm releasing anything that will allow you to see if there's any status for me as a social being. You are seeing a spiritual being whose worth is not based on what he has or what she has. Their worth is internal. Their worth is based on their character. And that's why Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, I come not except but to perfect character. You know how powerful that is? That people get into color. That's the problem with the world, color. In fact, Allah, we'll talk about the verse, Allah talks about color in the Quran. But he said color is only a sign. It ain't the real worth. And they get caught up in color and they miss the sign. That your worth is in your character. How do you treat people? How do you respect people? How do you treat yourself? What do people say about you as a human being? That you dress nice? That you have nice things? Or the person has good character, the person is credible, the person is trustworthy. See, that's the real worth of a human being. See, everybody walking around with this invisible measuring stick. They got this invisible measuring stick that they look at people and they size them up and measure them. But most people measure people on the wrong standards. They're not measuring them on the standard of character. That's why Dr. King had to go to work on America. Dr. Martin Luther King went to work on America because America had been so consumed with color, with white supremacy, they missed the content of a human being's character. So he tried to educate white America that a human being's worth is not on their color, their skin pigmentation. Their worth is on their character. That's why Muhammad the Prophet ﷺ said that I come not except but to exalt character, to lift you up as a person of high standards. That's why all of us should see ourselves as Muhammad. All of us should see ourselves as Muhammad, striving to be one who is praising Allah much. See, if you're praising Allah much, that's going to put you in a different position as a human being. And when you look at the word Muhammad in Arabic, you'll see a figure of a being in sajda. And all of us should be striving to be Muhammad. That's why we take on the name. Those names we take on have meaning, so we strive to become better. So on this journey in life, the question is, who are you becoming? And if you're following this path, if you're following the path of Muhammad, who Allah said, Muhammad said, and follow me. He says, if you love Allah, then follow me. Allah will love you and forgive you your sins. The question is, who are you becoming? So the color game in America, that's why we talked last week. See, the man they elected or selected as the president of these United States wasn't put in a position based on character. Because if he was judged on character, oh my goodness, he would never be qualified. And that's why I tell you President Obama said that he was uniquely unqualified for the job. See, the color game. Europeans attack Trump every day. Never heard them say, you go back home. Go back where you come from. Never told Bernie Sanders that go back where your foreparents came from. But because he done been miseducated on the value of colors, he been miseducated. The racists and white supremacists have been miseducated about this ideal of a human being that Allah says, Khalaqal, and said, He created the human being. And that's the lesson they miss. And he said partly when he created a human being, one verse he talks about, he said that in creating the human being, he said, I gave you some distinction. You read these verses. In talking about the entire creation. Allah says, O mankind, we created you from a single pair of a male and a female and made you into nations and tribes that you may know one another. Verily the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is He who is the most righteous of you, and Allah has full knowledge and is well acquainted with all things. See, I already talked about the human being. He said from the very premise, he's talking about the human being, the human family. I made you, but I made you different. I made you in distinct groups. And all these different groups have something to deliver to the world. And that's why acquaintance is so important. That you have to get to know these other creatures because all of them have something unique to bring to the table of civilization. All of them. So he said that now I want you to become knowledgeable of each other. I want you to learn and grow and pull from each other. But I want you to realize that the best of all of you, I don't care what your status is, how I created you, the power inherently that I gave you, the best of you is the one who has what to talk about. See, all these groups are gifted, and because of some gifts, some groups think they're more superior than others, but Allah said, hold up now. With all that you've been blessed with through me, the best of you is the one who is most conscious of me. Because the one who's most conscious of me is going to realize the value I put in these other groups. They're not going to abuse, they're not going to oppress, they're not going to dehumanize these other groups of people. So he said, I created you like that for you to become knowledgeable with each other. That you become aware through this interaction. That's why we said from the very premise, he says, Al-Lamahul Bayan. That he taught this human being how to clearly express himself. That's how you get to know people. You have to interact, have conversations, break bread, travel, work together, live together. This is how you get to know human beings. But I told you that the classification of color is what causes problems and creates blocks in these human relations. Here's another verse where Allah talks about that subject we said we would talk about, color. And it's a very, very powerful verse. Because he already told us he made us humanly the same, but culturally different. Humanly the same, but culturally different. And if he made you humanly the same, that you have to become one who now moves from your humanity to understand what gives you your distinction as a human being. That means there has to be some sense of what we call self-knowledge. Knowledge yourself. Know yourself. See, because if you don't know yourself, then you begin to take on the identity of other people. And if you take on the identity of other people, you lose your power in the world. Now here's what Allah says about this subject of color. He makes it very clear. He said, listen, and among his signs in the creation and the heavens of the earth and the differences in your languages and your colors. Verily in that are signs for those who know. Now he said that amongst his signs, this is one of the signs. Let's see, some people get locked into the color and miss the sign. The sign where Allah says, here's some uniqueness, here's some power, and it's showing you the greatness of what he has done. Color is a powerful situation. I remember I was reading, I want to read this to you, I was reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. And Malcolm was talking about his experience on Hajj. And I love this quote, this segment of the book. And he was talking about the Caucasian that he was engaged with when he was on Hajj. Now he made it clear that the Caucasian he was engaged on Hajj was different from the Caucasian he was engaged with in Harlem. He understood that. He understood that when he came back home, he still had the racial issues to deal with. But he realized that on Hajj, he said this, he said, we were truly all the same brothers because their belief in one God had removed the white from their minds, the white from their behavior, and the white from their attitude. If you understand the white from a person's thinking, the supremacy in a person's thinking, the miseducation in their mind of who they were. He said Islam had removed the whiteness from their thinking. That they realized they were engaged with a human being because as you make the experience of Hajj, you throw off all your distinction and you see a human being. I don't have no clothes on other than that which conceals my private parts. And I see a human being. You see color, but you're not locked in the color. You see a human being and you have a soul-to-soul connection with another human being. He said, I can see from this that perhaps if white America could accept the oneness of Allah, then perhaps they too could accept the reality of the oneness of man and cease to measure, hinder, and harm others in terms of their differences of color. That's a major problem. And this book here was written back, I believe, in the 60s. He said if white America could just accept the ideal of the oneness of Allah, then perhaps they could accept the ideal of the oneness of man. And if you're not able to accept the oneness of man, he goes on to say, then they will begin to hinder, harm others in terms of their differences in color. Major problem in America. That's why I told you the president of this United States said, for those sisters, Latino, Somalian, African American, go back home. See, locked in the color, go back home and then work on your country. And in fact, 3 of them born in America. But see, still in his thinking, he has the whiteness in his mind, the whiteness in his attitude, and the whiteness in his behavior. But Allah says here, and amongst his signs is the variations in your colors and your languages as a sign. Nothing other than a sign. But if you look at color, you know, if you make a salad, they tell you research has already shown that the best salad you can eat is the salad that has the most colors. Tomatoes, cucumbers, and all those ingredients in those forms of vegetation has unique properties that can nurture and heal your body. And if you understand the power of color, what Allah deposited in all these human beings, it can bring great value to the table of civilization. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Assalamu alaikum. So back to the salad, back to the color issue, because that's a major problem in the world, particularly in America. Let me read you also. This is Andrew Hatcher, who's a Caucasian professor. He wrote the book, Two Nations, Black, White, Separate, Hostile, and Unequal. He states America is inherently a white country in character, in structure, and in culture. Here's a Caucasian who wrote this book in 1992. Now things have changed, and things will continue to change. They will continue to change because Allah is the one that moves the change. And the reason why you find all of these changes, we want all these laws, we don't want other people coming to this country, we don't want this person to do that, is because Caucasians can see that your rise means their decline. And they will fight hard to maintain their power and what is called privilege. Privilege. So the color issue is a major problem because also with that comes self-hate. I'm talking to you also about the miseducation. That when the human being is miseducated, he becomes self-destructive. And that's why we have to begin to educate educated by Al-Islam, educated by this Quran. Allah already said that he taught the Quran, and Prophet Muhammad says, "Khairukum min tu'allama al-Quran wa 'allamahu." That the best of you is he who learns the Quran and teaches it. We got to teach his book. You have to learn it for yourself, and then feel duty-bound and inspired to teach the other people. In fact, the driving force of the Nation of Islam was that the duty of the civilized was to teach civilization to the uncivilized. It can be no more relevant today than ever. But that's what the world needs. The world needs to be taught on the skills of how you civilize and build up society. How do you come into an awareness of culture? How do you become an awareness of refinement, being a highly evolved spiritual being, a moral being, an intellectual being? Understand there's a distinction between an animal and a human being. You're not moving by instinct, you're moving by intelligence and the proper control of your emotions. Where the emotions begin to work for you rather than working against you. So when you make that salad, we talking about this color, when you make that salad and you blend in all those colors, it brings so much of a flavor and it does so much for your body. And that's what happens when you bring all these human beings together from all over the world. See, Allah says we in Jumuah, He is Al-Jami, He's the one that brings all of these human beings together. The Pakistani, the African, the person from Malaysia, Afghanistan, Europe. He's bringing all these human, the world don't even want to see that. See, when I look at the Republican Party, for the most part, I see major reflections of a group who say he is supreme white supremacy. Yeah. Because as Hatcher said, America is inherently a white country in character, structure, and culture. And we want to do just what Hajj does, work to bring the human family together. That's the greatest lesson that the world can see, that Hajj is the testament of bringing the human family together for the ultimate once in a lifetime, once a year family reunion. That's what happened. Once a year, once in a lifetime family reunion. That you see yourself as an international being, as a global being, as a citizen of the earth. You see yourself as a citizen of the earth because you read the Quran, Allah said, and travel through the earth. He said, in fact, and travel through the earth and see what was the end of those who rejected him. We got to travel because travel, it broadens you. And then we can see the greatness of all these people of different languages, different cultures, who have great culture, great value to deliver to the entire world. Because the world is dependent upon each other. All these other countries, they're dependent on each other. That's why you have United Nations to bring these nations together so they can work to make the world better. See, the United Nations is a sign of working to bring all these different groups together so they can work to make the world a better place to live. Why? Because what? The human being is dependent upon another human being. He don't operate in the world by himself. He said he made you into nations and tribes that you may get to know each other. But first you have to get to know yourself so you can appreciate yourself and realize that you have something great to bring to the world. So Muhammad the Prophet said, I come not except but to perfect character. That's what we want to work on. Grow in character, in love, in decency, and recognize the power of the human being. Realize as a human being you have an enemy. That's why when they make Hajj, even on that journey to Arafat, you have to go to the Jamarat. Even in that path, you have to go and you have to stone the image of Shaitan. See, Allah don't even exclude that from the Hajj. The reality is you're going to face Shaitan in the world. And the mission of Shaitan is to take the human being out of the human body. See, Allah says, Khalaqal Insan, that He created the human being, the loving, the caring, the forgiving, the strong, the intelligent human being. And the mission of the devil is to take the human being out of the human body. Take out the love. Take out the respect. Take out the character. Take out the intelligence. It makes you nothing but a shell of the being that he began to breathe his spirit into you, leading you on a path towards self-destruction. That's the mission of the devil. Allah says he created the human being, and the mission, I want to leave you, of the devil is to take the human being out of the human body. So you lack civility, you lack refinement, you lack decency, you have no shame. When you look around, you can see there's no shame. We talked before about how we was told before, boy, girl, you need to be ashamed of yourself. They don't say that too much today. Almost anything goes. That's why Muhammad the Prophet said the lesson of the prophets of old was, where there's no shame, do as you will. And that's what you see today. Because Shaitan has worked to take the human being out of the human body. He's taking the shame out of the human being. He's taking the decency out of the human being. And now that human being is moving towards self-destruction. When in fact he has all the tools of self-preservation. All the tools of self-preservation so he can work to make his contribution to life. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. إقامة الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر